What is identity? Is it the passions and curiosities we follow? Or is it the people we connect to and love? Is it the history we share? Or could it be the values we are taught? Join me, and through performance and discussion, we learn to embrace our identities. So everyone, hello, welcome to the first ever Embracing Identity with I, Philip John Bedwell, and he, who is Paul Ashe. So we were just actually saying, because I think part of identity for me is about vulnerability. And yeah, I am incredibly nervous to be doing this. So it's a weird one. I think maybe because there's a slight level of technology coming into it as well. So we're admitting the last few people at the moment. But yeah, just it's gonna be an interesting one. So yeah, lots of people saying hello. So what I'll say now as well, hello to everyone in the chat. Have a little chat in there if you want. But by the end of it, when we get to about 7:45, 7:50, I'm going to have a little look in now. And if anybody's got any questions for us, nice questions, people, we'll try and get through a few of them before the end of the podcast. I'll let everyone know as well, this is being recorded. So if you've got, like, obviously we can't hear or see you, but if you miss any of it or you want to watch it again, it'll be available definitely on Vimeo, to another thing at the moment, not on what's it called,
YouTube.
YouTube at the moment, but that's a whole nother thing I'm working with at the moment, talking about identity. So actually I'm not going to go into a massive conversation about this, but one thing I would like to state before I get into it with Paul and talk about identity there is that when people mention identity, there is a very, very big push at the moment for gender identity. There are amazing people discussing this at a level that is their expertise to do it. I, as Philip John Bedwell, choose not to talk about identity in that range, not because I'm scared of it, but because I think it is being discussed so well and it's so nuanced. I don't want it to just become another voice. For me, more than my gender, and Paul is, I'm going to ask you about this as well, it's what makes me me. What's in here, and what made us, what led us to this point, what inspires us, what makes us want to create, what makes us want to move on with things or stay in a certain state. And that for me is what I'm truly choosing to focus on with these conversations and this art project. So I just wanted to state that first of all. I just think it's really important that we can have these conversations in a safe and open manner, but also I wanted to make sure that I was talking about it from my perspective rather than trying to lead people on into a way where I think some people maybe got the thoughts that it was going to become just another sort of like masculine archetype of just like talking about what it is to be a man. And I just really wanted to try and avoid that, to be quite honest. So, I mean, mate, is there anything you'd want to say on that? If you don't want to, that's absolutely fine as well.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. There's a lot of people doing a lot of discourse on all the platforms about various things. My opinion on things is I would never talk about something that I'm not directly affected by. I can be an ally, and I
Yes.
am an ally to everything out there. I can be a supporter of everybody possible, but I would never speak on the subject of race struggles, gender struggles, because I'm very, very privileged. I don't have to go through that stuff. I happily talk to anybody about it, but I'd never represent it because it's just disrespectful to that group of people, in my opinion.
Do you know what? I think for me as well, I don't really want to talk about it because I'm too busy listening. And
Yeah.
that's another reason I'm doing this project as well. I'm aware that I don't want it to become a navel gaze for me. It's like, oh, look at me. No, it's like anything with fame or identity for me. It's more about I want to listen to people. I want to sort of state my story and what makes me so that other people can listen and discuss themselves. It's just I'm just a sounding board. I'm just a conduit. I don't. This is it. I want people to tell their stories, and I truly just want to listen. So in saying that, I'm talking a lot and I'm not listening to you. So, where should we start? I mean, we could talk about the project that we've worked on, our part of the project, tentatively titled at the moment contest, although I know Paul isn't mad happy with that one. But so I can sort of give a little bit of backstory. Paul and I have known each other for over 30 years. We've been wrestlers for Paul, professional wrestlers for
26 years.
There we go. 26 years. And we sort of this embracing identity came about. And then we decided to sort of like how I really wanted to reach out to certain people that have made my identity what it was. And Paul was a obvious like one of the first choices because we've been together. He's known me for so long in good and bad, ups and downs, lefts and rights, and apple stands and everything. That's an in joke. Sorry, guys. Not too many of them. And we just, I thought, how can we deconstruct wrestling to a degree of what is this part of my identity? And I went almost, I feel, with the obvious choice of being tackled over and over again, the struggle, the flesh meeting each other over and over again. And as we were discussing it, Paul out of nowhere said, how about talking to the wrestlers before they wrestle and then straight after they wrestle? And it blew my mind. And I was like, that is such an awesome idea. And another reason why I've done this project, I want to collaborate because I want to hear how people deconstruct their own lives and identify themselves well. So, mate, where did that come from?
Yeah. So I think I can speak from things in wrestling from a bit of a different perspective to many, because not only have I been a wrestler for 26 years, I've been a teacher in wrestling for probably about 20 of those years at least. And I've taught hundreds of people, and I've run shows. I've structured, scripted, if you will, shows. I've shaped people, given people characters, helped them make their characters. So I've seen every single element of the business from top to bottom. And the one thing I've seen over those years, of all the people I've trained, is the person that walks through the door that very first time they want to come training, and the person that is then in front of a crowd, a few years in, found themselves, become themselves, having a success. And more often than not, there is a huge difference between those two people, which isn't a bad thing. Quite often it's a good thing, because so many people, wrestling gives them their identity, or it shapes their identity, or it strengthens who they are. And I have seen so many people that have come into wrestling needing it as a crutch, and by the end of it, not needing a crutch at all, because wrestling has made them into the person they wanted to be. And so many people, you know yourself, so many people, the person you're talking to 5 minutes before they first go out the curtain, and then the person that's out there in front of the people, in front of the lights, in the ring, in front of a crowd, is so different to the person that just beforehand you were behind the curtain going, oh, what are you doing tomorrow? Oh, I'm gonna go for a curry and see the missus. Oh, the music's playing. And then 2 minutes later on, they're a completely different person. Yeah. And I find that on a sociological level fascinating, because all actors do it, all musicians do it, lots of sports people do it. But with wrestlers, it's a real change. It's a massive change. I just find it fascinating.
The one thing that as well that people who are not involved in wrestling that might have a weird one understanding, even aside from acting, where you will be completely in character, then spoilers, we talk to each other in the ring quite a lot, and you can be completely in character, but then in that moment you'll drop character to give a bit of information, and you have to sort of let them know that this is you talking, or that the other person talking, not the wrestler, performative wrestler talking, and then you go back into character again. But it's that very quick switch in and out that it's so different to any other sort of performative art I've ever been involved in. I just find it Do you ever get that as well? That, and how, I mean, how you sort of navigate through that space as well, that there's one side of your brain being out to the crowd, being the character, fulfilling that need to the audience, but at the same time, we're also keeping the conscious mind on a sense of like, how's this going? Do I feel safe? Am I taking care of the opponent? Just that weird sort of synchronicity of both sides of the brain going at the same time, the performative identity, and then the other identity underneath, keeping the control on the wheel, so to speak.
I think it's a really interesting thing, and I think it's one of the things that makes wrestling one of the most beautiful expressive arts in the world. If
Mm.
you're an actor and you're doing a scene, chances are when you finish filming, you'll come out of that character somewhat.
Yeah.
Or if you're doing something with special effects, you're not actually that character. Most people, some people stay in character the whole time they're on set, but a lot of people, they don't, they flit in and out. But it's little spits and bursts.
Mm.
While you're acting, you're focused on your lines, where the camera is, who you're talking to, and the scene that you're trying to tell. If you're a sports person, you're focused on playing the sport the best you can. You're not worried about what the crowd's doing. You're not worried about if the crowd's enjoying it necessarily. You're worried about winning.
Mm.
When you're wrestling, you're doing all of that. You have to listen to the crowd. Are they getting bored of what we're doing? Are they enjoying what we're doing? Did I do something there that worked and I don't do that next time, or I do that next time? And you have to keep in and out. You can be in there wrestling with someone, and all of a sudden you have to suddenly go, "Are you okay? Was that too hard?" I had it at the weekend. One of the guys I was wrestling with, great young lad, came across the ring and hit me with a forearm. Now, normally, spoiler for the non-wrestlers people out there, we don't hit full force. We
Mm.
learn how to do it just enough.
Yeah.
But he got a bit overzealous and he hit me as hard as he possibly could in their head. And for a second, the character went, who was the entertainer and making the crowd happy. And the character went, and I just dropped my head and went, "Oh, geez, ease up on that."
Yeah.
And then we went back to it. No one else nobody knew outside of that little kind of corner. Nobody knew what was going on. But I had to be that person. And then I had to be listening to what the crowd were doing. Are they up yet? Is now the right time to do what we're going to do? If things go wrong, you have to suddenly go, okay, get a control of this situation, speak to this person, calm them down if they're excited or whatever. And we get the one take. It's the old adage, we have one take to do this. And we do. We don't stop halfway through and go reset. We don't go line. We got one take. And that's physical as well as acting. And for me, I think that's what makes wrestling one of the best art forms, because you're on the whole time and you've got to be multiple different people. And you've got to change throughout that 10, 15, 20 minutes you're out there. You've got to be, if you're a bad guy, you've got to be a bastard. Then all of a sudden, you've got to be a coward. If you're a good guy, you've got to be full of energy. Then you've got to be full of weakness, then full of energy again. And you've got to keep flitting the whole time while keeping this character up. But to the person that you're in there with, letting that character down. It's a wild toolbox we have to have.
Yeah, and it is. I just think for me as well, just that, like you say, that I mean, you and I, when we've wrestled each other, when we've sort of feuded with each other, we have that understanding. I think in a weird sort of way, the closer you are, or the better you know the person, sometimes the friendlier you are with them, actually, the harder you end up hitting each other, not because you're taking liberties, but more because it's understood, and you're both working towards that idea that you want it to be as good as possible. And so that dividing line between reality, or like authentically having a proper punch up, but at the same, but keeping the artifice of not you want it to be as good as possible for the audience. You want to feel it so you can react off it more, but at the same time, I whenever I've hurt anyone by accident or whatever, I've always felt terrible the next day. I never want to injure anyone in that sense. You know, that was the thing that was always drummed into us when we were training, that you always leave your opponent able to work the next day. You should never be going out there to injure them. And that's just so such an important thing to understand, I feel.
Yeah. Well, some people, this is their livelihood.
Yes.
And especially in days past, there weren't guaranteed contracts. They're all contractors. So if you couldn't work the next day, you didn't get paid.
Yes.
So if you go out there and let's say you're put on a program with somebody, you're going to be working this person for 3 months, up and down the country, all over the place. You hurt them on night one, you've got no one to wrestle for the next 3 months. It's very easy to get turned around and go, well, I'll tell you what, you're not working for the next 3 months because the guy that you were going to be working with is out of action.
Yeah.
Or where you're going to have this great story where you're going to earn all this money, actually now you're not. You're going to do 1 or 2 shows here and there, and you're not going to earn anything. But also your colleagues, your friends, even if you don't particularly like the person, your colleagues, you work together and you're working supposedly for the greater good, for the product. Because the better the product is, the more fans that come in. The more fans that come in, the more fans that watch what you're doing. The more people that watch what you're doing, the more merchandise they get, and it goes on and on and on. But if you're creating something, you're creating it together. And that's when you make something really beautiful. It's not just about the you, it's about the we.
That's an amazing way of putting it. And so there's something that my acting coach said as well, Michael Keogh from Inspire Actor Studio. He has said this saying, and it's like the longer I've gone on, I would love to ask you about this as well. When you have different interests and curiosities, different part of your identity, so to speak, you suddenly find like synchronicities. You think, oh, that isn't exactly that, but taking some of this knowledge actually sort of matches up with that in my mind. So I feel that this equals that. And one thing that Mike always said was, he always said, be interested, not interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And what that means to me is, like, if me and you are working together, whatever match I'm in, I'm reacting to the crowd. So weirdly, the crowd, I'm very big on when I perform in any arena now, I'm very interested, even if the crowd is the camera, I'm very interested in reacting to what that's doing. They are part of the tale as far as I'm concerned. The audience has a role in my performance, whichever performance that may be. But the less I think in performance I worry about what I'm doing, or actually actively out there going out and going, I'm going to do something cool, or if I do this in this moment, it's going to be amazing. And more just be in the moment and react to maybe what you're doing to me, or react to what the audience is doing. It becomes a lot more organic. And ultimately, I find that it just, you're a lot more in the moment. You're less worried about trying to control it. And this is something, again, I'd love to talk about as well, the idea of surrendering, and it not being a vulnerability and it not being a weakness, allowing the moment to travel through you, and you're a conduit to it, as opposed to trying to force something that might not meant to be there.
Yeah. I mean, some of the best comedy actors in history have ad-libbed their way through films.
There you go.
And they've got a script, they've got a kind of framework and an idea. Chevy Chase, Bill Murray were famous for it. They make it up because they know humor, they know comedy, and they know what's going to work. And they still keep within what the director wants. They still do the structure of the film, but they edit things a little bit here and there because they're in the moment. And at that moment, that's going to work well. And we have to be in the moment all the time because we have to react to what's going on, and we have to keep with what the plan is. We have to keep with the structure and the bigger plan. And everything that you do knocks onto everybody else, and you have to be aware of that. And I think it's one of the things that is a problem in modern wrestling, that so many people are so selfish, and that they do what's good for them or what they want to do, and it knocks onto the products. You see it on TV with certain products and certain promotions all over the place. And if you have that one vision, you work for that bigger thing, the whole thing becomes good. And like you were saying about the crowd interaction and connecting with the crowd, we were talking about it recently, that piece about a month or so ago with Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, when they had that big brawl, and then she chased her through the corridor. And the best thing of that clip was that little girl who was out getting merchandise at the time and looked and saw 2 superstars run past her, looked at her dad and went, wow, did you see that? She's going to want to come back now. She's going to want to tell her friends what an amazing experience it was. I saw famous people. Oh, I might go along to that wrestling show. Then her friend comes along. And all of a sudden, it grows.
But then, like, okay, so this is a great jumping off point into identity and stuff as well. If we talk about wrestling, how we both ended up identifying with wrestling, making it part of our personalities for almost 3 decades at the moment. But we've both been watching it for over 3 decades. And what did we see? What resonated with us in those moments where we're like, not only do we want to watch it, we want to become it. We want to take parts of what we're seeing and putting it inside of us. This resonates with us, because it's very interesting for me. It's not the more I think about it now in these days, Paul, it wasn't just about having a punch up. We were both exposed to violence at a very young age. And I've seen real violence. I do watch like real like boxing matches, UFC, MMA, grappling, whatever, all the time. But there is something still for me so true in comic books and in wrestling where it's violence, but I don't know, not violence without its implications, but almost like a, I'm going to sort of say a joyous level of violence, but do you know what I mean? Like the excitement and an adrenaline rush of a fight, but you know everyone's going to be okay, so there's less guilt about it.
It's context. It's
Yeah,
context. When you're watching a wrestling match, it's it's a contest, but it's good versus evil.
yes,
No matter who you are, you have some level of interest in good versus evil, whether it's Star Wars, whether it's Lord of the Rings, whether it's Harry Potter, whether it's politics. You know, there's always yeah, there's
Star Wars
villains and there's
politics.
heroes in real life. Yeah. There's
Yeah, it's
villains and
true though.
heroes in every part of life, and everyone has an interest in the hero versus villain story, whether you're cheering for the hero or cheering for the villain, whichever one. But you see there something you can attach to, something you can cheer for, something you can cheer against. You want to see the outcome because you've got an emotional investment, because somebody has connected with you, a situation or a story has connected with you. And I always use movies as analogies for the
Yeah,
stuff. But something like the Avengers films, people had an emotional connection to that. People like the Harry Potter films and the Lord of the Rings, emotional connection because they've been invested in it for so long. They cared about the outcome. They cared about how that became an ending. They cared about the people. If you can get that investment in the feeling rather than just the content, you've got it made. So the violence is the means to the end. It helps tell that story.
but for you, why did you? What was it that? I mean, okay, so I've got to try and quick story short. We ended up both opening up a wrestling fan club in school, which I think Paul and I were the only two members of. But
We
then
were,
we saw a wrestling training camp, and we decided to go to it. Wrestling training camps have changed a lot now. Back then, we got leathered. I mean, and we actually in the first ever training camp we went to, we actually pretty much beat each other up for real just to see how much heart we had. Yeah. So what brought you to that though, Paul? I mean, why? What was it? What was it that you thought? Yeah, I've got to do this. And what kept you in it? Because there's some Paul and I could tell you there are so many people that come into it. I want to be a wrestler. Tremendous. You'll see them there for like 2 weeks, and it happens to everyone. They'll take one slam or fall that hurts them, and it has to happen to you. It's not on purpose. People don't do it. It just accidents happen, and you'll feel sick or whatever, or something will hurt really bad. And then it's in that moment you see it in everyone. They go, "That's enough. This isn't for me," or you don't like it, but you don't dislike it, and you go, "This is who I am. This is who I need to be." So, and
for
it is,
most people,
yeah. And what was it for you, mate?
I was just going to say, just to that last bit, for most people, I mean, I've seen countless people come into it and leave within a short while.
Yep.
For most people, it's because it isn't it isn't the vision they had of wrestling. They wanted it to be, they wanted to be superstars within 6 months. They wanted to be top of the card. They wanted to have everything that they dreamed of. They wanted to be this certain character. It didn't work out, and that's the main reason why people have moved on and left. But to your original point, I never ever wanted to get involved in it as an actual wrestler because I never thought I could.
Hmm.
I had 5 years at senior school. I tried to avoid physical education at every single possible juncture. I think my attendance on my last year was something like 30%. And I tried to avoid it at all costs. If you would have picked anybody out of the entire school, least likely to get involved in anything kind of sporty would have been me. And I never thought it was something I could do. I went along to that training camp because you're the one that said to me about it. And I had the mindset in my mind of, I will regret not doing it more than I'll regret doing it and getting hurt. I'll never forgive myself if I don't at least try it. And I expected to do that weekender and be done and just go, do you know what? Click, I've done it in my life, great. But yeah, I was hooked straight away. And I honestly think for me, it was a case of, it gave me an identity. when I had none. It gave me something to do. I came out of school and I was struggling because I didn't know who I was. I didn't have anything going for me. I was just bumming around. I had no idea what I was going to do in life. On a personal level, no sense of identity whatsoever. But in wrestling, I could have that. I could be somebody. I wasn't. I wasn't the person I was at school anymore. I wasn't all these negatives that I had around me. I was somebody, and I could be somebody. And I had people that believed me for the first time. And I had someone right next to me that was egging me on and helping me and was helping me become a weightlifter, become a bodybuilder, who was sharing a passion with me and could go on this journey with me. And I knew that together we could work it between us. And I honestly thought, great, if I can get a year out of this, amazing. And then here we are 26 years later on.
That's so interesting. But what I can say from my perspective is that you naturally picked it up quicker than me. Like, I just remember your body growing quicker than mine. Like, but just, it was, I don't know, maybe you said you found this part of your identity in it, but then how you assimilated all the things you needed to become what you needed to become in wrestling. Like, I'll say again, you had the better physique out of both of us. I was always, you had the technical ability. You could do stuff in that ring that I never could. I had a certain level of like showmanship, but the physical and actual technical details of it, I couldn't do it. Yeah. So I think we lifted each other to a degree, but and I always thank you for that. I think we helped each other and we continue to help each other. But this is what I would love to put you now is like, and in all honesty, not just saying, I've said this to you in private as well. I think, okay, if wrestling gave you your identity at that point, you came from school, and you've mentioned this as well about, I think the education system failed you. I think you're incredibly erudite, incredibly intelligent, and learned, but you learn a different way. You want to focus on stuff that intrigues you and makes you curious. And I think you were always made to feel less than because you couldn't learn in that way that they wanted to teach you. But your sense of knowledge and stuff has been incredible to watch. And in recent years, how wrestling gave you an identity, you've now managed to separate an identity away from wrestling to be able to come to question yourself and become this human, because we're not talking about gender, this human, this spirit that absolutely inspires me more than anyone else I know. Like, your level of self-awareness, self-belief, self-education, and the willingness to go into the uncomfortable bits more than any wrestling slams or anything could ever get, and willing to change and learn. Yeah, I'm honestly, like, I cannot tell you the depths of my pride that I can call you my best friend. What you've managed to do in this world, mate.
I mean, I don't take compliments well, as you know, so shut up. No, that it means more than you can possibly imagine, and especially at the moment, that is something that really helps hearing, because I'm going through some stuff at the moment, as you know. But I think a lot of it with me, and I said this to somebody the other day. It sounds like a terrible thing to say, but I think everyone needs to hit rock bottom in life.
One needs to struggle.
Yeah, everyone needs struggle. And I often use the analogy of, if you fall down a well, you have no idea how to climb out of that well until you hit the bottom. Because you need to assess, how high have I got to climb? What can I do? Can I grab hold of the wall? How am I going to do this? If you're just falling, you've got no idea. And I like yourself, like a lot of people, have had trauma, had loss, had bad things happen in life. And I think that shapes you enormously. And I think I've had a few things over the last few years that have really kind of just made me go, okay, and I need to start looking at myself, because I used wrestling as a crutch for a very long while. I used wrestling as my everything, my identity, who I was, because I had nothing out of school, absolutely nothing. I was told I was a failure. I was failed at everything. Everyone said he's never going to amount to anything, and I had no confidence. But wrestling gave me something. I could be somebody. I could be successful, and I threw myself into it. One, because I needed something. Two, because I was a bit of an empty canvas in that sense. And three, because I had a lot more work to do, because I was smaller than most people. I was not confident like a lot of other people were. So I had to work twice as hard just to stand out. But the best thing I've ever done in my life is therapy, because it's allowed me to stop and look at myself. And I've done a lot of healing over the last few years, a lot of introspection, and found out a lot about myself. And I think that's helped me kind of get to where I am now. And I was always taught by our trainer, Justin Richards, most important thing in the world, pay it back. And that's what I try and do. And I'm there for anybody that needs help. And I do it to help people that I'm training and stuff. It's all about paying it forward, paying it back, paying it forward, whichever one it is, paying it forward.
Paying it somewhere. I think for me as well, like that is one of the big things that always, one of my big sayings. I can't believe, yeah, Justin said it, but it comes to me like the one that I've always said in years now is the greatest state a human spirit can ever be in, or a spirit can ever be in, is in a state of giving and expecting nothing in return. Yeah. And I think you as a teacher, I wish that's another thing that blows me away about you. The way you can teach, the way you can take all of these different characters and in each of them spot their goodness and go, this is what's going to make you a better wrestler. Because I'm going to say something as well, Paul. You do more than wrestling with people. You more than get them ring ready. You get them world ready. You can get, and this is the thing that wrestling's given me, and I can see it's given you as well. We can talk about when to step away from things at certain points, but for both of us, it gave us stuff that even as we've stepped away and we maybe not identify full time as a pro wrestler anymore, it sets you up for life. You go, okay, this isn't wrestling, but this is how I can talk in public. This isn't wrestling, but this is how I can present myself. This isn't wrestling, but this is how I can greet discomfort. This is how I can overcome things. And you are doing that. You are not just saying, here's a pair of tights, here's a pair of boots, go and slam each other. You are making people become better. You are enabling people to find their identities both in and outside of the ring. And for that, I find that absolutely wondrous.
Yeah, I'd certainly try to, because I mean, I've had various people come into me that are pretty broken one way or another, and they're looking for wrestling to be the savior. Absolutely fine. Let me help you on that. Let me kind of like take you across the river Styx, if you will.
Yes.
But while we're doing that, I'm going to help you. So what you can use here, you can use in everyday life. And shout out to Andrea. I'm sure he's not watching at the moment. He's probably teaching people. But Andrea, my personal trainer, he has said that what time he spent in wrestling has helped him immensely in the real life. It gave him the confidence to, like he said to me the other day, if I can go out in front of several hundred people in a pair of spandex tights and not be embarrassed, I'm not embarrassed to talk to people. And that helped him become a personal trainer. And he's a very, very good and successful one. And he said wrestling really got him there for that, because he had to go through a lot of adversity and he had to go through a lot of hazing and a lot of kind of just confidence issues. And it helped build him. And yeah, he's a great example. There's other people who I won't call out to embarrass them, but other people who have come to me and they've said, I don't know if I can do this. And I said, of course you can. And while we're teaching you how to do this, all of this is transferable to real life. All of it is.
Yeah. And it's mad, isn't it? I would love to know where that is in our identities, that spark that I can even level it tonight after, this is not a boast, but after recording, probably off the top of my head, almost 200 recorded hours of podcasts, that this one tonight, before I started it, I was walking up and down the street outside, did a little live video on Instagram. I don't think I've ever been more scared in my life to do a podcast anyway. But that first time in the wrestling ring, even today, even 26 years later, still walking, getting just before we walk through the curtain in the wrestling ring, even before the director says action, even before I take my first breath and I walk out onto a stage or onto a floor for a piece of performance art, there's that point, Paul, where I don't know if you get this, but it's like there's a thing in my body that goes, you don't have to do this. You could stop. You could stop. Don't, But then there's a point in me that goes, go on.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing. I don't know what does it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's courage. It's definitely not bravado. It's definitely not like I'm a man or I'm going to push through it or whatever. No, it's just like, go on. And do you ever get that? What keeps you going, basically? What makes you?
I think it's a twofold thing. I think it's good and bad. I think part of it is because wrestling has been so much of my identity for so long that I need it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of it, and it's not necessarily a good thing because it's like a drug. But I think on the good side, much like you, I like to create art, and you've transposed that over the years because you've gone from being a wrestler to being a performance artist. I mean, some of the stuff you do as art pieces, I look at and go, I wouldn't have the guts to do that. I just simply wouldn't. And now you got into acting and you're doing martial arts training, you're doing weapons training. And I'm looking at this going, okay, so now he's an actor and a wrestler and a stuntman and an art model, and you because you want to constantly produce, you want to create art, you want to give back, you want to be part of something.
Mm.
You've got that hunger, and I think both of us have that in different ways and in same ways at the same time. And I think that's what keeps us both going. It's that hunger to create, that hunger to entertain, and that hunger to constantly keep doing something better with yourself. My biggest fear is missing out, is
Mm.
not doing stuff or being just like static. That's why I had a mini breakdown during lockdown because I couldn't do anything creative and I just didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, okay, I can sit and play my Super Nintendo again. That's not enough. But that's why I think both of us are like the way we are because we need to create.
I think that, like you say, that can be not so much the drug side of it, but there is that level of me that I am always dissatisfied. I'm always like, what next? What next? What next? And in the last year or so, I've really had to start focusing on if something good has happened, if something really good works out and turns out well, that I don't just go, yeah, cool, but what now? I have to actually, for that moment, go, I want to enjoy this. This is important. This is something that's come full circle, and I should reflect on this. I think it is that sense of being rather than just okay, but what next? There's a few. I think the one thing that I'm very lucky with, even after getting injured quite badly in wrestling, that I had a chance to come back to it. And for these last few years, every time I've wrestled, I've been able to almost step outside myself at least once per match and go, this is awesome. Just as a fan, do you know what? I wanted to say this to you as well. I don't know if this is the same for you, but there's that 15, 16-year-old kid that met the other 16 or 14, 16-year-old kid. And we were both just like, you like wrestling too. You've been to Walthamstow Assembly Hall too. And even the younger version of me, even the 5-year-old, 6-year-old version boy inside of me would look at me now and go, whoa. And I need to not forget that. I think so many people get jaded. They lose that sense of play. They're not connected to that little curiosity inside. And it's so important to tap into that voice, to be aware of it, to feed it in any which way. And it might not be being a wrestler. It might not be anything creative, so to speak, but there'll be something in you where you feel at peace. Your body and mind feels interlinked, and you'll feel at peace and at play and enjoy. And it's important to reflect on those moments.
Two quotes. One's from, and a lot of people won't get this off, and I'll paraphrase. It was really fast. If you don't stop and look, you're going to miss it.
Mm.
And the other one is there's a guy I watch on YouTube who reviews Transformers toys. As you can see, I collect a lot of toys. And he does videos about how to transform them because these days are really hard to transform. But he always says as his line, we don't stop playing with toys because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing with toys.
Oh,
And that always sticks with me because,
whoa.
yeah, you don't, if you feel you're too old to do something or you need to mature and that means dropping something, not doing it anymore, fine. You do you, whatever works. But never ever stop doing something because you think, it's not mature for me to do it. It's not, I shouldn't be doing this at my age or whatever, anything like that. I think you have to keep that fire alive in you with something or another. That's why if you've got a passion and you can't do it anymore, find something else. If you start losing passion, you just start shutting down, and you're just. It's that film Wanted with Angelina Jolie,
Yeah.
the Nine Inch Nails song. Every day is exactly the same, and it's been in that constant every day the same thing. It's not good for you. It's just bad for the soul.
That's a banging song as well. I love that song.
It is.
Yeah, but like, so when you say, like, obviously, I don't want to touch on it too much, Paul, but like, if you get to a point where the pain and the pain has overwhelmed the joy, the pleasure of it, or the physical pain is stopping you able to do and live up to what you want yourself to do anymore. It happens to all of us. Yeah, there's an aging in all of us. I'm not frightened to admit, I'll go on here. I've lost hearing. You know, I've had serious injuries to my hips. The nurse unfortunately called my hips deformed the other day by accident. Sweet.
Nice.
But we find a way. Some people, I've known that as well through wrestling back in the day when we first started, that they were holding on to it for far too long. They were trying to give this false sense of bravado and masculine, or not even just anger and aggression, but you could tell that they're actually quite weak inside and vulnerable, but they couldn't admit it. But they were hanging on to these aspects of their identity where it obviously served them. It was time to move on. For you, when is it time? When do you hear the band start playing? When is it time for you to go, okay, this is, where do I need, and how do you do it? Is it like, do you take aspects of your character and go, okay, I can't do it like that anymore, but maybe I try it slightly differently? Or is there what speaks to you where you're like, okay, this is where I think it's time to step off, and two, what do I do now?
I mean, there's aspects of that in terms of the physical, because I can't do the things I did when I was 25, and I don't try and do them anymore, because it would be silly. But there's always that bit of me that wants to. But it's kind of serendipitous timing, because it literally this morning, I backed out of everything I'm doing at the moment, because for the past 11 years, I've not only wrestled, I've been a promoter, a booker. So for those that aren't in the wrestling business, planning the matches, putting cards together, putting stories, putting characters together, managing all these different people's careers, shaping them, teaching them, training them, putting all these storylines together. And it kind of got to a point with some things this weekend where I just said, I can't do it anymore. I need to take some time away from it. And it's an indefinite break. I don't know how long. I do feel like I want to do more in wrestling before I'm done. I don't think I've got a long while left. I'm 47 years old now, but I don't feel complete. But at this point in time, my jug is full, and mentally, emotionally, I can't do it. And I've had to step away from all of it, a whole lot. And it's one of the hardest decisions I've made in a long, long time. But at the same time, and I think my therapist has helped me a lot with this, if you don't look after yourself, everything else will just destroy you. And being a wrestling booker is one of the most thankless jobs in the world, because you're only as good as the last thing you did for someone that they were happy with. You can give somebody the world, give them everything. The one time you don't, you're the worst thing in the world. Yeah. And it's hard to juggle that. If you can be a cold person, it's easy. I'm not. My biggest criticism I've had is I'm too nice. And I am. But I get to the point where I go, do you know what? I need to look after me. I'm trying to get myself back into good physical condition. I did a great lot last year, and I need to get back into the journey I was on. I need to have a bit of me time. Wrestling's like a second job for me. I do 40 hours a week on it easily. That's got to stop, because I've got things I want to do. I've got other hobbies I want to do. I've got personal time I want to do. I've got my own physical health I want to do. And I've got this seal.
Chunk.
I want to spend time with Chunky Seal.
I have one of them upstairs.
But it's about looking after myself. And when will I know? When will I know? When that bell tolls? When will I know? I don't know. I'll know. But I think it's when the creativity dries up. When I get to the point when I'm like, I don't want to create anymore. That's when it will be.
You know what? There's a quote from I believe his name's Jim Brown. He's the guy with the afro in Enter the Dragon. And he has this amazing quote in it where Han, the main villain in it, goes, he calls him an unethical or just basically not. He's not a great martial artist because he doesn't know. He's too arrogant. He doesn't ever fear death or the end. And this guy just looks at the hand. He goes, you know, when the end comes, I won't even know it. And he goes, how so? And he goes, because I'll be too busy looking good.
I like that a lot. That's good. That's very good.
But all joking aside, I think for me, mate, like the physical journey you put yourself on and the health you got yourself into, and the fact that it's actually on the little trailer of me and you hugging each other after our reunion match. And I've never been more happy. Like in all of wrestling, to stand in that ring with you, the tag team for all those years, to reclaim it like that. And knowing, you know, like it's not forever. It's not trying to relive past glories. It's not like still got it. It was just, I get to share this space with my best friend. And also I'm not taking it for granted. I'm completely in the moment. And that's just a
Yeah,
wonderful feeling.
absolutely. And I think those last couple of matches we've done where we have really been in the moment and little organic things have happened,
Yes,
we've sat there and gone, that was so good and it wasn't even planned. And it's because we're enjoying the moment now.
exactly. Just that being interested and not interesting, seeing what the universe is offering and just running with it. Just the
Yeah.
idea that surrender isn't vulnerability. It's a beauty, or sorry, surrender and vulnerability isn't weak. It's actually a strength. It allows you to be like water. If we're going to go back to Bruce Lee again, that guy had
Yeah.
it all, had all the knowledge already.
Yeah.
So listen, is there anyone who wants to ask any questions? We're at 1:45. I did offer out so I can see everyone on the chat room. Does anybody want to ask? Oh, wow. Ross was in there quick. Jeez. But each of you, from all the artistic things you have created, what are you most proud of?
Oh,
Oh,
don't
that's
ask that.
a
To be completely honest, and it's a very selfless thing. Um, I'm very, very proud of everything that I've done as a wrestler, everything that we've done as a team. Whether it's because our initial run as a team was against the odds, that
yes.
nobody was backing us, nobody had
Tag
faith in
teams.
us. Everyone, certain people did everything possible to try and make us fail.
Mhm.
Yet we superseded that, and we were very successful and very popular despite everything. I'm very proud of the stuff I did outside of that as well, and again against the odds. But for me, it's what I've done for other people. The amount of people that initially you'd look at and go, they're never going to make this. Yeah, they will. And I've helped them become something more and live their dream is the key thing. Go out there, live their dream, become something, become successful at it, have a run at it, have champions, whatever it is. Helping the other people live their dream and succeed at their dream and thrive at their dream. I think that's it for me.
That's lovely.
For you?
Oof. Honestly, hugging you after that that match, or actually no, even more than that, there was an organic moment where we both ended up standing on the ring ropes looking down at our opponent walking towards the ring, and we hadn't even mentioned it. We just ended up doing it, and I just happened to look over to the other side of the ring and realize you were standing there as well, and I was like, I've been gifted this in this moment. I didn't have to be anywhere else. This is exactly where I was meant to be. And I love that. Whenever I had that in a performance piece I did called Defense Wounds, which is not where I am emotionally anymore, but I just woke up and I completely had the performance in my mind, exactly what I needed to do. And there were certain moments in acting, in wrestling, in performance art, something I'm working on now, the final performance I'm doing in Margate, where I just feel like everything's connected and it's just not trying to control it, just being in absolute joy and awareness of those moments and the ephemeral nature of it.
And I
Right.
think we've always had that very lucky thing, just to very quickly say, we've always had that kind of almost like telepathy that,
Yes.
I mean, in that match as well last year, 10 years since we tagged together and we walked back in there like it was the same day that we last done the last one. But we didn't need to speak to each other, didn't need to throw signals to each other. We just know. And I think that speaks to us a lot, personally.
I think there is without getting all super trippy heavy, but I just do think there are certain energies, frequencies, resonances, whatever you want to call it, that end up meant to be connecting together. Like you see magnets like sticking or repelling. I think it's the same with spirit and nature. And I just think sometimes it's just meant to be like that. It's just and that's one of those things. I think we were just meant to join together like that. We'll hopefully got time for one or two more. Gwilyn, what has both of your moments in the ring or anywhere creatively that you felt was a highlight and you felt immensely proud of yourselves? Oh, it's a similar question. Oh, highlight. Oh,
I've got one in mind.
go on.
Do you remember the show we did in Acton, 2001 against Sticks and Pliers?
Yes, yes. Oh,
Um,
yeah, that was an amazing match.
that and the subsequent show in Walthamstow. Again, there was nothing put behind us. We were set up to just be part of the show, but we became the biggest thing on the show both times. Not because we were trying to outdo people, not because we were trying to steal the show, but we just did because we had an organic and natural connection with the people.
Yeah.
And we took people with the boys specifically as well, who weren't experienced and they weren't traveled, natural talents, but we took them and we created something really good that people remembered for a long while. And I think I'm not saying it's we took somebody that was no good and we made it look good, but we made something very, very good out of what was given to us as spare parts,
Yeah.
situation wise.
I just, I do think tying it back into identity, anything as a wrestler that's resonated me, or with acting or performance art, any form of art, any sort of thing that resonates emotionally with me, is because there's an authenticity there. There is something that almost when I'm standing from the ropes looking at you, and we both happen to be on the ropes like that, like attracts like. And I think
Yeah.
when someone in that moment is giving a trueness of emotion, it's like us, two boys from Walthamstow, in that match in Walthamstow Assembly or whatever, we're jacked. But more than anything, more than our look or our presence or what we're portraying, there is two boys inside there that are just super excited to be there, not for ego, not for worship us, but because we are like, in a way, we're like those ones in the audience, but we're the ones to stand on the other side of the railing and get in there so people can sort of be vicariously there with us. They identify with us.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's worked, that's when I see that in art all the time. There's a certain film that I'll watch and there might be a scene in it and it just, I'm like, oh, and I can't, or music, a tone or whatever, and I just can't stop listening to it because there's just a trueness in it. There's an authenticity in it that's something that makes Philip goes, that is me. That is part of me.
Yeah. Any other questions we had?
What we got? As a school teacher, I can relate to the, sorry, Kyle. As a school teacher, I can relate to the idea of being on when I'm in front of a class. It feels like playing a character, although maybe not to the same level as wrestling. Obviously, practice and training are needed to become an expert at switching on that character in professional wrestling. But do you think there's an innate ability to do that in people who decide to get into wrestling, etc.? I think it's a learned skill. I think it's a fearlessness and it's repetition. It's like, no, for me, it's no different to building muscles in the gym. It's the physical and the mental are very similar. The more you assimilate it, the more you're willing to step forward and try. Like you can find a way to do it. Like I'm always, like we talked about this a little bit earlier, I'm always nervous. I'm always recognizing it, but there's just this lovely part. There's a pleasure in it now. Before I get in a cold shower, before I lift a heavy weight, before I do a piece of performance art, I'm thinking this could all go wrong. Before I turn on the computer tonight and suddenly I see loads of messages going, I can't connect, or I can't hear you, or it's not recording, where I just go on. Or it's not even me, whatever that thing in me is, go on. And I'm more excited about that than worried about failing.
I think the key thing is passion. I've always said you get three people that walk in a wrestling school. You get people that are naturals for it. They're going to be good at it. They're going to pick it up. They're going to nail every part of it. You get some that aren't naturals, but they'll learn it with work. And there's some that it's just not for them. But the ones that make it, especially the ones in the middle group that aren't naturals, but still become great at it, it's because of passion and constantly working at it. And to answer the question, I think there's an innate ability, but I think sometimes it has to be unlocked. And I think that's where the repetition and the dedication and the not getting bogged down at the first hurdle comes into it. And you keep at it. It's all unlockable there as with everybody. It's just you get out what you put in, and you've got to put a lot in.
I completely agree, mate. Well, one last thing from Joe saying, not a question, but just wanted to say my journey into wrestling was mentally very tough for me. Listening to your podcast, Phil, and having your advice support, Paul, has really helped me get through. The insight into how you both think, how you both see the world of wrestling, and just the real world in general has inspired me as a person. I have so much respect for the both of you and just wanted to thank you for that. I have taken a lot from just this hour alone. Thank you, Joe. That means a lot, mate.
Joe's quality. He's very good friends with one of the up and coming wrestlers in the wrestling scene at the moment, El Antonio. He knows him very well. But Joe is a fantastic guy and probably the most mature person of his age in his 20s, of any 20-something-year-old I know. very mature, head on his shoulders. But I had somebody say something recently to me as well, and I will not name the person, but they said that before wrestling, they were in a very bad place mentally and emotionally, and wrestling literally saved their life. And to know that I've been a part of that, or I've helped on that journey, is incredible, because that person's now got a purpose and they've got something to keep them going. Whatever it is, if it keeps you going, keeps you getting up every day, keeps you pushing, keeps you improving, that's the best. Honestly, I teared up when he told me, because to think that I could be a part of something like that and shaping someone's life is unbelievable. But that's what, wrestling or anything else that's performative can be, and that's wonderful.
Well, mate, I just, this, I couldn't have wanted, like, when you first, like I've been wanting to do this project for over 9 years now. Ever since pretty much I started doing performance art, been applying to the Arts Council a few times, and I have to thank the Arts Council England, because I think everything comes at the right time, and I think this has come right now. And I've realized, more than me just trying to do the thing, I'm realizing what a journey this is taking me on and enabling me to have conversations like this. And about 5 years ago, I wouldn't have appreciated it, but now I can appreciate every second of it. And even now, like, seeing how you're changing as a person in a wonderful way, how you come up with so much of this idea for the piece of recorded art that will be coming up shortly. I will mention that in a second. But just seeing you grow and your identity change, and you being unafraid to show vulnerability, completely giving and able to help others, and maybe hate others, and able just to completely transform as a person. Like I say, not just saying it for show, not just saying it for now. I am truly blessed and grateful and joyous to know you. So thank you so much for your continued friendship, mate, and being here today.
And you, yours, mate. And I'll say this is the last thing for myself. The topic is embracing identity. And I say to anybody else out there that's listening, you might take a while to find your identity. You might have to go through a few. It's going to be a tough journey. You're going to go through hardships. But when you find it, and don't just embrace it, become it, and never, ever let go of it, and never be ashamed of who you are, never be embarrassed by who you are, but always be true to who you are. It's the most important thing you'll do in life.
Exactly. Accountability, self-accountability, and also self-love. Something you've been talking about tonight as well, Paul. You are the constant in every relationship. If you don't take care of yourself, then you can't show up for anyone else. So self-care, self-love isn't selfish. It's taking care of the most important person in every relationship you'll ever have. So important. So everyone listening, there is a link tree coming up on my Instagram page. There's all sorts of technological things that I'm just saying words at the moment. I don't really know what's going on. But the long story short, if you go to my Instagram page, there'll start to be posts and stuff coming up on there about upcoming things, about pieces of art for you to watch that I've been recording. I'm so excited. I'm about halfway through editing the piece I recorded with Paul a couple of weeks ago, tentatively titled Contest. Paul's probably making a face again, but it's an amazing, if I do say so, it's an incredible piece of work. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done, so I can't wait for everyone to see that. If you've enjoyed this talk tonight, I don't know why I keep doing this with my hands, but if you enjoyed this talk tonight, on Monday the 23rd of September at 6 p.m, there is going to be another conversation with my actor friend Holly Prentice. We will be talking about performative identity, and there'll be a piece of work coming up where we are going to do an improv scene. So how an identity is formed in a moment. So that's going to be an interesting one to go as well. But yeah, apart from that, Paul, is there anywhere people can follow you and see what you're up to? Or do you just not want people to follow
you? No, unless it's Audi, and if it is Audi, leave me alone. Well, no, I'm on all the socials, but I'm not very interested. I just post pictures of my toys.
I hate to tell you this, but Paul's incredibly interesting, and he's been very bashful, and he inspires me every day with his journey. But he's got his chonk, he's got his seal, he's happy, I'm happy. And yeah, listen, thank you everyone for attending tonight. The tickets for Holly's free tickets for Holly's podcast will be coming up in the next couple of days. If you go on my Eventbrite now, the Embracing Identity Eventbrite, there is already tickets up for my final performance, not final performance art, performance ever, but the thing that culminates all of this, what we're doing together on Thursday, the 10th of October in the Margates Art Club. It's called, so the title of the piece will be called A Soft Call for Attention, which is very meaningful to me, and actually just came out of nowhere from my last weekend when I was working with my noise artist friend Wahid, and he just said, oh, it's like a soft call for attention. I was like, brilliant, just offhandedly you've named the performance piece, so well done. But yeah, there'll be tickets, there's tickets available for that now, and Holly's tickets will be available in the next couple of days. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and
thank you, everybody.
I'll see you all soon. Bye guys, bye Chonk.